I'm William Russell. I'm a sound artist and creative director of MONOM, which is a studio focusing on the expressive and introspective possibilities of spatial sound as a creative, artistic medium. Well, MONOM is actually a German word. Which is where the studio MONOM was founded. I came up with this word because what it means actually is that it's sort of like it's like the X that you do to the power of something. So in terms of, it's a mathematical term actually. And the reason that I chose this name is because for a few reasons. So one of the reasons is that when creating spatial sound, you are actually using mono sound sources, because in nature or real life, actually the only reason why things become stereo is because we have two ears, but actually everything in nature is a mono sound source. But it's actually the combination of all of these mono sound sources that create the rich, sort of sonic landscape that we live in. And the second reason is also because I wanted to create a space in which we would bring artists in and help them expand the possibilities of their work. So they become the X, and then we are helping them extrapolate and add another dimension to their art form. I was working as a music director, and I was looking for different ways in which to bring an artist's work to life that were more immersive than the current sort of live experiences that I was experiencing, which I was becoming quite disillusioned with. So I began kind of going around the world and seeing a lot of different installations, sound installations, so trying to find the most immersive sound installation I could to get some inspiration for what to create. And one day I walked into this installation by 4D Sound, this collective, and within 1 minute I felt a sound come from the distance and travel towards me and then through me and then out the other side and keep going, and I knew that this was far beyond anything that I'd experienced before, and I instantly at that moment shifted my entire life to sort of exploring this medium of spatial sound. So I kind of went to the founder of this exhibition. So the project that will be presented here is a version of a sonic film that I've created personally as a sound artist. This is the first piece that I'm presenting myself publicly. So this is actually, the idea is that, this is called Lost Space Rainforests, but Lost Space will be a series that explores the oceans, wetlands, all of these natural environments that we're losing. Also going into other terrain as well that's not natural environments, just to actually explore the fact that we are constantly shifting and changing, and environments are evolving and these things. But I think very important right now is to raise awareness for really how much we are losing and how dramatic that is, and that we can't, in the same way as we recreate human-made environments, we can't do the same with natural environments that have been evolving for billions of years. So the idea is to really allow the listener to be within this environment that they normally wouldn't be able to experience. I especially like the fact that it's in cities, and it's very much for people who do not maybe get a chance to experience nature, and who do not in that way also are able to empathize with that natural world because they don't have a memory or a history with that necessarily. But I think it's just as important for them to understand what is being lost, because, well, maybe they will, or maybe, they'll want to have that chance and then that won't be there anymore. Essentially, for this first part in the series, I wanted to explore, two of the largest, most life-rich environments, and that is rainforests and that's the ocean. So in this exhibition, we'll only be focusing on rainforests. So the idea was that I've collected different samples from field recordings of these environments, and then I've done a spectral analysis of these recordings and pulled out specific animals and creatures. I then take each of those and I give them their own place and space in the sonic environment, which you can place sounds anywhere in the room. So, you know, building up these mono sound sources together creates this very rich landscape in which to be explored. And then something that I wanted to do was actually to make it a sonic film. So rather than it being just a direct sort of recording of an environment, I was able to then kind of manipulate that environment to, for example, it starts off, you know, there's a sunrise, and you know, at first it's very quiet, and then I'm able to build up each element of that as if it was in nature. And then I'm also able to add wind and things through the space to give this sort of sense of, which you can't record. So in the same way as a film actually uses a lot of Foley recordings and not the real thing, which actually sounds more realistic, even though it's not the real thing. Yeah, I've put together all of the sounds, and then I basically then added the dynamics of natural phenomena over the top of that. So in this piece you'll hear it go from sunrise to sunset, and during that period there'll also be a storm. So it goes from a very light breeze all the way up to a very large storm, and then down again, and then there's, you know, the forest becomes wet, and I've added, you know, rain and creeks and waterfalls and stuff, which is simulating what would happen after that storm. But you would never be able to record these things, actually, especially that much rain and wind and thunder. Actually, the 4D sound technology itself is what creates these, enables the production of audio holograms, which are essentially much like visual holograms in that you can sort of perceive them from any direction, you know, and anywhere within this within the sound field. And I think that it's very simple just to imagine that if you have a visual hologram, you know, in the same way that you can perceive that visually, you can perceive an audiogram holographically, with your ears rather than your eyes. The best way to experience it is to really explore the environment as if you'd be exploring a physical environment. And that doesn't mean also that you can't sit down within that the same way that if you were in a forest and you found a beautiful place to sit, you would sit down and really be in that moment as opposed to walking around. So I always say, you know, to explore, and then if there's somewhere you like, sit down. If you want to go deeper, definitely shut your eyes. Shutting off your eyes, I think, is one of the most powerful things you can do when listening to the piece.